I really don't know what to tell you, but I'm pretty sure crabs doesn't go away on its own. Just like as a rule of thumb. Yeah, not judging. I'm just saying.
Oh, I thought you just kind of like wash them off in the shower.
No. That's not how it works.
Just in case this segment makes it in, if you're listening and you have crabs, let us know exactly how it works.
What's up, bros?
What up, bro?
And welcome to Bro Meets World.
Bro Meets World.
Your Boy Meets World fancast. I'm Siege.
And I'm TC.
Okay. So, TC. Where you at today? Where you at? What's going on?
Well, I just saw an episode where I was certain that there was going to be a marital affair, and I was very disappointed when that did not happen.
Did you remember this episode?
I remember vague parts of it, but I don't know. I didn't remember a lot of details, and I also just didn't remember how funny it was. It was a pretty funny episode.
This is a really funny episode. Now, I'll agree. I did not remember all the details, but I remembered this episode. Like when I saw it up ahead, I was like, I remember this, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I remember this episode being worse than it was, but I was pleasantly surprised by it.
I was very, very happy, and again, we're going to get into it, but I feel like we're starting to turn. I think
Oh no, we've already turned. Like, all of the episodes are pretty consistently good at this point.
That's good. Good to hear. Because I just feel like, everyone's kind of gotten their roles, and, it's just, I don't know, I'm happy.
If you can get through the Geography B episode, then you're good with the series.
Okay, so, let's do the Tell Me About It. Tell Me About It for this episode, by the way, is episode 12 of season 1, Once in Love with Amy. The episode Tell Me About It is Corey and Eric discovered that Amy has been lying about her whereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, she's been on the low. It's true. It's,
I mean,
it's really...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, I mean, that's a pretty accurate description, but I just thought it was really interesting, this whole, like, what's a wrong and a right, I guess just the ethical questions that they have Corey figure out in this episode, I thought were really interesting for his age group, anyway.
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to say something very similar, which is that I find it very interesting that we even approached infidelity the way that we did. It's like, I don't think you really see that in kids'
We approach it with humor in this episode.
Yeah. But like, they're kind of like well aware. They don't, like, the kids aren't stupid. They have...
No, and the weirdest thing about this, and I'm sure we're going to get there, but Eric doesn't even seem that upset by it. And that blew me away.
Yeah, you know what? We could definitely get into that. But I also feel like, what was I thinking of? Man, it reminded me of how, The Incredibles does the same thing. Like The Incredibles is, we bring up infidelity in a marriage, and you're just kind of like, this is a kid's show, but they handle it in a way that you're like...
there was a lot of interesting facets of it in this episode, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the episode. Opening scene. All right, so we open up with Eric having his usual girl troubles and talking on the phone.
To Kristen is her name?
It's Kristen or Christy. I think it was Christy.
I feel like it was maybe Kristen. It doesn't matter. It's some new chick.
It's one of those things, yeah. But I was just I wanted to know. It's like, do you remember how often, like, because you just see him on the home landline with the cord phone, and he's been doing this like a lot lately. I'm just like, do you remember how long you used to like just spend?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and I mean, obviously, by the time I was around Eric's age, it was much later. It was more common for people to have more than one phone. I don't remember having that just one house phone.
Oh yeah,
like where I was actively using the phone.
Yeah, I don't really remember that, but I do remember just being on the landline all the time, or like, having one line. You know what I mean? Where it's like you would pick up the phone and someone else would...
Sure. Where like it could be like, oh hey, it's you have to call waiting, whatever.
It,
But what I do remember more than anything was not being able to use the internet because of a phone
yes,
conversation.
yes, yes, for sure. Someone pointed out the other day that we're gonna get to the age where people don't know who Tom from MySpace is. And then
Oh, he was everyone's friend.
yeah, yeah, but they're gonna be like adults who don't know that reference. And then on top of that, someone pointed out You've Got Mail, like the movie You've Got Mail.
Yeah, yeah.
That entire premise is already outdated, and it's about a bookstore becoming outdated.
Yeah. Also, what's really interesting, they tried to play off Tom Hanks and Dave Chappelle as best friends in that movie.
What?
Who? What?
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're best friends in that movie.
I'll have to check that out.
It's strange.
Different times, 98. Different times. Okay, so going back into it, Eric tells Corey, you know what the main difference between guys and girls is? Girls want commitment. Guys want girls. And what do you think about
Eric says some. Yeah, that seems like something Eric will say.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like, yeah, we don't have to really get into it because opinions and stuff like this. But this is like we start to see Eric's, I'll say, bad advice, or like I don't know, his little one-off pieces of wisdom that
I think he's just supposed to kind of just be like the Danny Zuko of the show, where he's just kind of like this lady man who just kind of says like these like cool guy comments, but all of them just sound super misogynistic.
Well, of course. Look at Eric, and look. This is the '90s. Remember, we're gonna have so many male issues at this point in time. But I only like it because Corey's like, "What's wrong with commitment?" And his response is, "You are so 11." And I have to admit, like, as someone who spends a lot of time talking to his female friends about fuckboys on Instagram, we haven't really come that far.
Yeah. This is a real sign of the times.
Okay, Alan comes in with a rose, and he clearly
Which he stole from Feeney's garden.
yeah. Well, it was on his side of the fence, so this one belongs to him. And you know what? As we were saying earlier, as far as Alan and Feeney's little territory turf war goes, this is Alan's rose now. Amy comes in and she's like busy. You were like busy being a mom. I just like she's all over the place and she's rushing and it's
I think she's like a super mom in this scene. I think she's coming in, she's making sure so and so has what they need, and she's preparing lunches and getting ready for work and just taking care of everyone all at once. And I think she's just like the ultimate mom in that moment.
No, I agree, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's really funny because in the scene, it's kind of played like Alan's feelings are hurt. That he keeps trying to get in for a hug with Amy, and she's busy. And it's like, dude, I'm like, maybe if you helped her out with any one of these things, that she would have time.
Maybe she would want help more than a rose.
Exactly, because he's literally just standing there while she's pulling stuff out of the oven. She keeps calling Morgan. No one's moved to go get Morgan. She was like looking for a briefcase or something. I don't remember all the details.
It seems like Alan maybe needs to learn what Amy's love language is.
Oh, let's not go there. But have you done your love language?
Oh, of course. I mean,
I've done mine too. I don't.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing for people our age to have done, right?
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, let us know on Robbie's World.
Yeah, it turns into what's your love language? Okay, but turns out that while she's going everywhere and doing everything, they get a call. The babysitter can't make it, and she, mom has her bowling league, and dad has his manager meeting. So Amy's just like, you know what? I'll call someone else, and Eric's like, don't worry about it. I got it. And this kind of sets up, again, they're using this intro to kind of set up the rest of the episode.
Sure.
And everyone leaves the kitchen, finally, and, Morgan comes down, and she's like home alone, and it's a little bit of Morgan cuteness, and that's the end of the opening credit.
Yeah, the big takeaway from this is that we established that Wednesday nights, Mom has bowling league and Dad has his manager meeting on Wednesdays. So that's really the whole purpose of this whole opening scene.
Exactly. This is I was saying. All right, and then we do our opening theme song.
Shoot me in the face.
I'm not gonna lie, and I don't know. Maybe it was because I was hungover. Maybe it was because I don't know. But like, actually, not hungover because I didn't drink, but I was tired, and for some reason, this time it bothered me. The next time it didn't bother me, but this time it bothered me.
Oh, it's slowly driving me like actually insane.
Okay. Theme after the theme song, we open up in class, and Feeney gives us a math problem.
And he gives us this problem that from the get go, I don't know if you picked this up. I knew right away. I was like, "Oh, this is a pretty challenging. Like, this is like a trick question." It seemed like he had something up his sleeve when he was saying it.
Well, I went into this very blindly, and I was just like, all right, there's gonna be a message, and I was waiting for the message to be told or whatever it was. I knew that they were tied to an overall meaning, but I honestly didn't think that much about the math problem until later on, and then I like tried to solve it.
Sure.
But while he's giving the math problem out, we get a rundown of like all the students' approaches. Corey, of course, interrupts the class, and he's like, "I know the answer." And Feeney's like, think about it. I want you to think about it. The whole purpose of this question is for you to think about your answer before you give it. And Corey's like, I already know it. It's 7. And Feeney's like, you're wrong. And him and Feeney have like a little funny back and forth about knowing the way that each other's gonna react or what they're gonna say next.
Well, yeah, they're basically saying the same thing in unison after a certain after a certain while.
Again, the whole thing is these two are predictable, and they know each other well enough to know what they're going to do next.
Can I just say, obviously, like, I don't know how you felt about it. I felt that Minkus stole every scene that he was in this episode.
So we're about to get into this, and I love that you said this because the only reason why I love that you said this is because I literally I wrote a note to myself that this is why the guy who plays Minkus was so memorable. Like, think about it. He is in one season of Boy Meets World.
And everyone knows him. And from like the least memorable season, people still know Minkus. They know Minkus like they know Urkel. Like, not maybe as popular, but that name just instantly is like a screech. Like, it fulfills that stereotype in people's heads.
Yeah, correct. And as you said, he's on the same level as Screech. And Screech is in, what I'm saying is all of these characters are in the entire series. Minkus. Sure. Season 1, and he makes another cameo appearance later in the series, but that is it. But he does such a good job at his character that he
has a scene later on where he kind of loses his mind, where I was just like, damn, they should just call this episode the Minkus Show. Like, this dude is insanely talented and entertaining.
He kills it. And this episode specifically, I was so excited because it was like they have the chemistry down. These children are great at their craft. I haven't adult comedy shows who get this back and forth and this pacing this well.
Yeah, these kids just instantly just have a fantastic comedic timing. Even like, I think Sean is getting so much funnier.
Yes. They're learning what to do with all the characters, and Sean, like, again, we're gonna get into it a little bit later, but like the beats that they hit is just like 1 2 1 2, and it's just like it's a great rhythm.
I wonder how much of that is the kids, and how much one of the things about this show that's kind of not something that happens a lot in television, is that pretty much this entire season was directed by the same director. All the episodes was Danny Trainer, I think is his name. So I think there was something to that. Like, whenever you hear the cast talk about, they always reference the director and how like big of a part he played into the show and their chemistry and everything. So I'm sure there's things going on behind the scenes that help that comedic pacing come across so effortlessly.
Okay, well, that's really good to know. I also I guess I just give credit to Ben Savage because like he I give credit to all of the child actors because when I look at Ben Savage, he does it so well and it's so naturally him, and he's always kind of been this way that I assume that they just found people who could work well.
Sure.
But anyway, we go into it and kind of set us up. Minkus, of course, interrupts, which we would expect from him at this point in time, and he says he knows the answer, and he goes into this long, loud explanation of what he thinks is the correct answer to this problem, and Feeney tells him that he's wrong too.
Yeah, and it was just good to see. I mean, this is the first time we see Minkus get anything wrong. And we see his reaction to it, and we see Sean's reaction to it. And their reactions are so great for the dynamics that's been built between their characters. Just Sean reveling in finally seeing Minkus be wrong, and Minkus just like not even able to compute that being wrong is an option for him. It was just it was a funny dynamic.
Here's the thing. Go back, watch that scene. Look at the kid who is sitting behind Minkus in the shot. He is acting so great for you believe that he is in this class and that Minkus has never gotten a question wrong. I was just so amazed at this extra in the background who is
just killing it.
He's just killing it. He's killing his role, and he literally has a look of surprise and amazement and just again, Sean revel in the fact that Minkus has gotten a question wrong, and I'm like, you know what? Good for you, kid.
You only got one shot. You did not miss your chance.
He did not miss his shot. But of course, Minkus is can't handle it, as you said, and he's just he gets up and leaves and goes to the nurse,
which a bit of an overreaction.
Yeah, Sean's like, Minkus, you're wrong. And Corey's like, I've been waiting to hear those words since preschool. So again, we get a little bit of this history being built between all of the characters, and then Topanga channels an Egyptian spirit to give her the right answer.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Topanga is we understand that Topanga is supposed to be a bit of a an off the wall character. She summons a spirit in this episode. Weird. Yeah, it's overly weird.
Yeah, very weird. And it's also really funny because I was thinking from a realistic standpoint, if she started to do this, it's what was her motivation by it? Even if she did think she was channeling something, I'm just trying to think of where her mind went to where being loud and interruptive was the way to go to get this answer.
I don't know, if I were a teacher in the classroom and I saw a kid who basically looked like they were having it in the midst of an exorcism, I don't know what I would even respond to that. Nonetheless, if they actually produced the correct answer, that kid would scare the bejesus out of me.
Feeney's been doing this for a while, so I just always credit to Feeney being
No, if a kid has access to spirits, that's a Sixth Sense situation. You need to get out.
But the reason why I love this is because they bring it back and it's so done. And I love the comedy of it, but also when Corey approaches her, she growls and he's just good demon. And again, it's just Ben Savage being really good in his character.
Was that a Ghostbusters reference? The growl and the good demon?
I don't know. Could be. I haven't watched Ghostbusters in quite a while.
It seemed familiar when they said it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. And then Feeney, before we change scenes, Feeney reminds them all that Topanga got the answer right, but Minkus got the answer wrong, and to use that to search for the correct answer. So it's kind of like an assignment, but we don't get a complete.
Yeah, he doesn't really assign anything, even though we see Corey and Sean desperately trying to figure out this problem later as if it's homework.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. In the very next scene, the boys are in Corey's kitchen using these dolls to visualize the math problems. And I was like, kudos to them for taking homework seriously. I mean, even if you want to say that Feeney was he gave this as an assignment, they still took out props. They are trying to figure this out. And I was like, Corey goes above and beyond when he's actually curious about something.
Sure. And that's the thing. He's always tried when it's mattered to him.
Yeah, when it's mattered to him, which I think is a great case study of individuals like that with minds like that.
Well, I mean, and I think it's true that that's the reason why Feeney gives him so much crap, because he knows that if Corey actually puts effort into it, he'll, succeed and, go above and beyond what even Corey thinks he's capable of. So that's why it frustrates Feeney so much to see him just kind of, making these jokes and, sneaking like, headphones in to listen to baseball games. All that stuff just annoys Feeney so much because he sees what Corey could be.
Yeah. And then while we're in the kitchen, working on this math problem, Sean just can't let go of Minkus's reaction.
He's relishing it. It's that same like weird serial killer vibe he got when he was messing with Minkus's lunch in the last episode.
Exactly.
Just that, like he's just obsessed. It's like Lex Luthor talking about Superman. Like he just.
No, I think it has a lot to do with what we're gonna hear from Sean a little bit later, which is that Minkus is just everything that Sean isn't. And I think there's just something about knowing that Minkus is human and is flawed as well that really gets Sean through the day.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, finding out his enemy is fallible.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with Lex Luthor and Superman. It's just like, oh, what? You have a weakness? Oh, man, I'm gonna exploit this.
Loves it.
All right, so then we have the question again is raised. What is the difference between Minkus and Topanga? And before we can really sit on that, Minkus just shows up completely just disheveled at the back door.
One of the things that kind of caught my attention during this scene is that I guess because in the classroom setting, they're usually sitting down. It seems like Minkus is so much younger than Ben and Ryder in the scene. Just I guess from a height difference, I don't know. He just seems like he's a little bit younger to me.
Is he? I just thought I think that's supposed to be part of his character. Because, he's gonna hit puberty a little bit later, and these boys are, I just wrote it off as that.
Sure, no, and I think they purposely casted him to look a little smaller, but I wonder if there's an actual age difference amongst the actors.
I just looked it up, and Ryder Strong and Ben Savage, Ben Savage is 37 now, Ryder Strong is 38, and Lee Norris is 37.
Oh, wow. Okay, never mind.
Oh, sorry, 36. So, it's like they have 1 year age difference between everyone. But that would explain the huge difference between Lee Norris and Ryder Strong in this episode.
Sure, yeah. That seems really noticeable to me.
Yeah, which again, I'm totally was going to mention that we're starting to get older. Everyone's starting, puberty is in fact hitting.
Well, Ben is going to actually be the most noticeable one because eventually Ben becomes taller than Sean, noticeably taller than Sean. But it just slowly happens over the course of 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah. But it's Sean is taller right now. He starts to do his little hair thing. I'm noticing.
Yep.
That very famous little flow with the hair. He's starting to do a lot more often. And
Corey's head doesn't look like a baby's head anymore.
And then also something that they kind of get into, I think it's in the next episode, but they start to refer to the way Sean smells a lot more often as well. And I don't know if that's life imitating art or art imitating life or whatever that is, but yeah, they start to just put that in the script a lot more.
Well, we're just learning more about him, and he's part of his character is that he's kind of disheveled.
Yeah, well, but the person disheveled right now is Minkus, and who
is killing this scene.
Yeah,
by the way,
my note is this scene is perfect. The fast-paced dialogue, the character interaction, they just do phenomenal.
And I also loved seeing him just fall apart because by having this person, and this is one of my complaints about Minkus in the past, was that he just seemed like this perfect character. There was no flaw to him. And so just as a viewer to see that, this person who's always right is falling apart is interesting. But from Corey's perspective, by having the person who's always right in Corey's world be wrong, it challenges Corey's perception of what's right and wrong. Which kind of leads to the conclusion about maybe there isn't always a right answer.
Yeah, all right. So I just want to like read off this little interaction of this scene because to me it's hilarious. Minkus comes in and he's completely just out of his mind. He's just like, correct answer, Mr. Minkus. You got it right, Mr. Minkus. He's just like, that's who I am. And now I'm like this brainless, pathetic moron without a clue. And then Sean's like, it's not so bad, which again told me of like where Sean sees himself.
Yeah.
And then he's asking Corey, like, what's the answer, Mr. Matthews? And Corey's like, oh, look, I told you what my answer is. It's 7.
Yeah, 7, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just again, his ability to answer that way with this like crazed person in front of your face is what makes Corey hilarious and fun to watch.
Well, they just seem to have like regardless of Minkus, who's like just kind of losing his mind right now. The two of them are just like, oh, whatever. It's just Minkus being Minkus. Like they don't seem elevated emotionally by his emotional state at all.
No, not at all. I mean, but I still think that that's worth noting because there are other. And later in the episode, we'll see Corey become his more manic self, and to watch him like keep it cool and be comedic right now is just very fun to me.
Totally.
Oh, and then all right, so you also have the little beats of like he's like, well, what have I? Minkus is like, well, what have I become? And Sean's like a brainless, pathetic moron. We've been over this, and he goes, when? And Minkus is, they were like, we just went over this or something. He goes, well, they say the short-term memory is the first to go. Corey says who? Minkus, I forgot, and he just leaves, and it's like
that's a pretty cheesy joke, but that's pretty great.
I loved it. I just loved that. But it's very sitcom, and it was great and well done by the kids.
Oh yeah, they sold. I mean, again, their comedic pacing is along with the writing is really shining through in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So after Minkus leaves, Sean explains that he's staying for dinner because his mom was looking over her liver cookbook. And Corey's like, no, your mom has bowling league tonight. And Sean's like, no, that's been over for like 6 weeks. And then, like, right as he says that,
Why would he say that? I wonder.
Amy enters and she has like her bowling bag and she's like, gotta get ready for bowling. You know, I'm heading out. And they're like, see, I told you she's going to bowling. And she runs upstairs to say goodbye to Morgan. And the boys check her bag and they see that it's filled with a dress and some high heels.
Okay, so when you saw this, did you remember that, like, who she ends up with?
Yeah, well, again, I told you I remembered this episode, so I knew exactly how this was gonna go out. But I also I was a little distracted because she had bright red pumps and a black dress, and I was like, "What? Where are you going? Where are you going?" Like again, that shows you my level. That's what I was distracted by. But continue.
I just loved because I kind of realized that like what was going on just because I kind of remembered a little bit as I saw the episode, but I just love that Amy was kind of lying to her kids because I feel like parents lie to their kids all the time, and that's not something we always see on television.
Absolutely, and I do like where we're headed with this. All right, so. But in the meantime, Amy's coming back downstairs, and we've just seen the boys like pick up the bag and figure out there's nothing in it, and that she has like this dress and these shoes, and she comes back downstairs and she's like, "Oh my god, this bag is so heavy," and it's just like that added bit of drama where it's like, "Why did you even have to lie about that? No one was even like."
Yeah, no, she was lying about things that no one was gonna like check her on.
Yeah, so it's like just her commitment to the role, but this is when Eric,
which by the way, she's too good of a liar. Yeah. And if that's the case, like, she's like suspiciously good at lying.
She's committed to it. Eric's
you can't trust anything she says from now
on. Eric's like, maybe this isn't as bad as it looks, and Sean's like, it looks pretty bad, and Corey's like, as bad as liver, like yo, you want to stay for dinner?
Get gone if you want.
But I also think it's very interesting because we know, especially in the future, about Sean's home life. So the fact that it's Sean who's kind of like asking these questions and stoking this fire.
Because he knows the questions to ask.
Exactly. And he's like, is there trouble in paradise? And Corey's like, of course not. My parents are happy.
Well, we I won't say it could be because Sean has experienced it, or it could be because Sean watched an abnormal amount of television, which we're also going to comment on a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, that completely makes sense. I'm just saying it's it was a very interesting thing to me that they had Sean be the one to ask these questions.
Sure, sure, sure. And I also just really thought it was interesting to have Corey and Eric just as siblings, just being like, is our parents' marriage okay? I don't really have siblings like that, but I have to imagine that there's always going to be one point where like a sibling might say to another, like, hey, are mom and dad going to be all right? And I just thought that was a really human moment for to have in this sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They do it together, and we're talking more and more about them doing different pairings. And I think in the last episode we had them paired up kind of for the first time as siblings, and this time we have it as well. And I'm noticing the different ways that they're mix and matching the cast, and I think I think they're experimenting, and it's really fun.
Well, we're seeing Sean, Eric, and Corey together. I think maybe for the first time that they all had like an extended scene together.
Yeah.
Um, what's really interesting about this and that the commentary, the cast commentary, they talk about this, that Eric and Sean hardly have any scenes together throughout the series because they consistently make each other break.
Ah, that makes sense. Because, especially later in the series, they both are just like the point of comedic relief in every scene. So I could totally understand why, like, they just would not be able to be in a scene together.
I guess yeah, and I guess they even had at one point request that the writers try to put them in the scene together, and they like hardly made their way through it.
That makes me so happy. Okay, but like this is where we get a little bit of like Eric's nonsense theories, where he's like, Eric's like, are they, or is Dad the one who's happy? Did you see this morning where Dad was trying to like give her a hug and she just was like dismissive, and they start over analyzing Amy's behavior that we saw earlier in the episode. So like right after that is when Sean suggests that they do he's like, have you not watched NYPD? You gotta tail her.
Yeah, so he's the one who's like, you guys need to tail them, and you need to see what's going on. I'll hang back. I'll watch. I don't know if you like suggest to watch Morgan. I don't
No,
really know how that shakes
like
out.
Corey goes, you stay with Morgan, and we're gonna go take a bus to this restaurant that we know Mom's gonna be at, and see if we can figure out what's going on from there.
So you and your brother, it's Philadelphia. It's at night, and you're taking like a bunch of city buses to go to this bougie restaurant
Yep,
downtown.
yep.
That seems pretty shady, right?
Yeah, no, it is. But and what they've done here, which is we're going to explore in the next episode, and talking about what we just talked about, they pair Sean up with Morgan, which is another pairing we haven't had before.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, just considering how their two characters are written.
I also don't know that I would trust Sean with Morgan if I'm being
Yeah, no, I
100%.
mean, like, I think again that's kind of the point.
Well, he's teaching her how to play poker.
Yeah, in the next scene, wait, right before we get to that scene, I just want to say the little line of Corey being like, if I die on this mission, find out the answer to that car problem and have Topanga channel it to me. And that's just like it's a great callback, and it's also
Sure.
like a great Ben Savage line, and it keeps us on track of the car problem, but at the exact same time kind of shows where Corey how Corey believes Topanga's I guess you call them superpowers or whatever.
Well, I mean, I think he just understands that she is just of a whole other level. Like he
Exactly.
doesn't understand it, but he knows that she is not of this earth.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I just thought it was funny. All right, so in our next scene, Sean is in fact watching Morgan, and he's teaching her how to play Morgan, and she's winning. She's got a full
Poker. Yeah, teaching Morgan how to play poker. Yeah.
Yeah. But Alan comes home and he's like, it's 10:15. Why is Morgan up? And where is everyone? And Sean's just kind of like, oh, the boys are at the library. And he's like, the library that closes at 9. And he's like, no, the other one. Sean is just terrible at lying at this point in time, which is also very unusual for Sean. Or is that like a character trait of Sean's? I can't remember.
Well, I do. One of the things I noted about this scene is that they're playing poker, and Morgan has a full house, And then she does like an Olsen twins shout out.
Yeah, she goes, "I love those Olsen twins."
Um, they're on the same network. That's cheap.
Of course it is. Again, like we're hitting the same demographic here. I think it was like what, back to back or something like that.
Well, depending on the year, I think it was split up by Family Matters.
Ah,
But Full House, it was actually no, because they moved them to Tuesdays after they got popular.
all right.
This is
But I say,
unimportant.
you know what, you guys don't. I'm not even going to at you. I think you know this, and that's what this podcast is for. But Alan isn't buying it, and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna put Morgan to bed, and you and I are gonna have a little chat." And I like that Sean's like, "Is this one of those like bonding chats?" He's like, no, no, it's not."
And it's nice to just see Sean just being a part of the family. And we saw this earlier when Alan just took Sean fishing, just the
Yeah,
two of them. That we're just, I mean, it's now normal for Sean to just hang around the Matthews house. We don't even question it as viewers.
exactly, and I really like that as well. I mean, of course, we have uh, the foresight to know how close and how long he's going to be there, but just a great thing and a great relationship to have with family members like this, or extra characters like this. Sorry.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so right after we Alan goes upstairs, the boys come in, and Corey and Eric have come back, and they're just like, they did see Amy. She was at the club. She was dancing with this mystery man, and they both don't know what to do with this kind of information.
And again, Eric doesn't seem that upset by it. And I think that's what kind of shook me as weird when watching this, was that the entire time he's just like, we have to tell dad, but he doesn't seem upset at all.
Well, I think the way I interpreted it, anyway, is that Eric is being the older brother right now. He is being the calm one because A, he doesn't have all the answers, and B, Corey is freaking out. You know what I mean?
And he's freaking out in the best way.
Exactly. And it's like they can't both freak out. But they decide that they do have to tell Alan, and they just don't know how they're going to start. And Sean's like, I'm always here for you guys, but I'm sitting this one out. And he leaves. Alan comes downstairs, and he's like, "Hey, where were you boys?" And they're like, "Look, we have to tell you something." And this is where like Ben Savage just nails his role, and what will be to me.
Well, Ben keeps doing this thing where he's like, Mom was with another guy, and he keeps trying to stop himself from saying that. So his mouth is covered by his hands, and you know that the moment his hands come down, he's gonna shout, "Mom was with another guy."
Yeah.
And so Eric is trying to be like, "Yo, Dad, so we took all these city buses and we went downtown," which Alan does not seem upset over at all, and I feel like that would be what I would be most upset over
I think
throughout
he's
this
trying
whole
to
thing.
figure out what's going on with him. I think, like, as a parent, you want to know why. Like, it's not like they probably didn't get punished for it or talked about it later. It's like in
Well,
this
I mean, they
moment.
made it a home safe,
Yeah,
clearly, but
exactly.
still, I just feel like that was something that I would have been as a parent a little upset over. But, and the entire time, like Ben's mouth is covered, and then eventually, I think Alan pulls his hands down. Is that what
Yeah,
happens?
Alan pulls his hands down a little bit, and Corey's just like, "Mom was with another dude," and covers his mouth up again, and then it's just like this consistent comedic thing where whenever Corey feels overwhelmed, he says something again, shouts it out, and then puts his hands back over his mouth, and it's just kind of like the exclamation point to whatever Eric was just saying.
And as far as just like comedic timing, I feel like Ben Savage again is being such a rock star. Like, I feel that his performance, like, I don't know, like if you can imagine like a young like Ross Geller, maybe just like as far as just the energy behind the performance.
I don't think that's like selling Ben Savage short, because like in this.
Yeah, that's probably not a great example, but I guess what I was just trying to say is that I've seen adult actors not give the same energy and commitment, or maybe give on caliber to what this 11-year-old is
Exactly.
doing.
You know what I just thought of? I think it's more of like George Costanza, like the George Costanza panic, or like that.
Sure.
Like I
Yes,
keep thinking
that's closer to it.
George scream, "I was in the pool! I was in the pool!" And like this is like exactly how Ben Savage sells his panic and his restraint, and then even at one point in time, he just keeps repeating, "Mom was with another dude. Mom was with another dude," and
And I think what made me think of Ross was the when he freaks out over the sandwich being eaten.
yeah,
I
exactly.
I
You're
I
right.
think that's what I was hearing when Ben was saying
You're
his
right.
line.
You're right. I can see that one, but it reminded me. Sorry, there's the little bit where Ben breaks his pattern by being like, "What do I have to paint you a picture?" And
Yeah.
it's just like it's great and classic Corey, and I think that this is like the beginning of us seeing Corey's panic behavior, because again in the series it'll just become like this thing where Corey can't handle really big news, and this is like the first time I remember seeing it.
Well, and to me, this is like, in order to have a great leading man, you need a leading man who's the everyman, but also someone who's super charismatic. Like, I've seen a lot of TV shows where the surrounding cast outshines the leading man, like in like
How I Met
How I
Your
Met Your
Mother.
Mother.
Yep.
Yeah, just a classic situation where just everyone else was just so much more interesting. But Ben is able to be just as crazy as everyone else. He's able to be super sincere and have these heartfelt moments as well. He's just an incredible talent that they found for the show.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. um And then right after we're doing this whole little bit of scene comedy, everyone hears Amy pull up, and Alan's like, "Oh well, I've got to talk to your mother," and the boys are just kind of like trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and Eric's like, "I'm here for you, Dad," and I think honestly, I think another very interesting point to this in this scene, and even your point of Eric being not upset, is like Eric is on his dad's side. If that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
But they don't even really seem mad at their mom.
Well, again, I think it's not that they're not mad. I think A, they just don't have all the answers, and then B, as I said, in their mind, even if like this has happened or if this is what's going on, Eric is on his dad's side. He's there for dad.
Sure, sure.
Okay. And Alan goes into the back, and it turns out Alan is the mystery man. So they just saw Alan with Amy. They didn't get a good look of him. So technically, Amy is the only one who got caught. And this was like the parents' way to get away from the kids and have a little run.
I thought it was really cute that they had like the secret date night thing. Like, I thought that was a cool storyline for them to have,
Oh,
and just to show
absolutely.
that just like parents like actually have to work on their romance as well. It seems like in other sitcoms, like I thought of Step by Step, how like Suzanne Summers and Patrick Duffy always had this like kind of steamy romance, but it didn't seem to be like stemming from any actual effort. It just seemed to always be around, and it just seemed unnatural. Like, this seems to like more realistic, I guess.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And one thing that we've said before, and I think is a very good point, is this show is really great at portraying a realistic group of parents.
Yeah.
With
Well, I idyllic, but still realistic. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, like, yeah, you're right, but I'm just saying that the way, specifically Amy, in this series so far, and this is kind of like one of the first times we've gotten a parent centric storyline,
Sure.
uh,
Sure.
especially one that doesn't center around Alan, and his job. But this is
Well, I was gonna say this is like our first real Amy storyline, isn't it? When's the
yeah.
last time
Well,
she
I was thinking like
had
we had the little thing with
the
Morgan and the
black no take back?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, you're right. It's just like I was just thinking that the way that they portray Amy in this series, and she is so realistic. She's not ideal. She's not the perfect mom, but she's invested in her kids. She does everything she can, and she's a loving wife, and she loves her husband. And that's just one of them they constantly go back to. She has great wisdom, and it's not like to me, it's not full house wisdom, and it's not, everything's gonna be okay wisdom. She's almost always the one who's just like, look, that's life.
Well, and I also love that it seems like her and Alan are just having fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. So she goes upstairs, and because in the very next scene, after we find out that it was Alan, the boys have been looking and they are trying to see what's going on with their parents. And Corey's
freaking out.
He's like, Mom's gone. We'll never see her again. And that's when Amy comes into the room, and Eric's like, are we still a family, or are we an after school special? And she's like, she immediately doesn't even play into it. She's like, look, I was dancing with your father. And
their reaction here is amazing, by the way, because both of them are just like, that's not her father?
Exactly, because they're so committed to the idea that she was cheating. And she was like, look, I love being a mom, but I'm more than that. And she's like,
which I love. I love that we're seeing like a television sitcom mom just be like, yo, I'm more than a mom. Like, I have a career, I have a relationship, like I'm a three-dimensional character.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It's like they do really well with Amy. We are doing a really big disservice by not having a female voice in here, but I just think that I would love to see what other women and what girls think about Amy's character, because I personally that she's really well written, and she's not used enough, but when she is used, it's A+.
Yeah, I would like to see more of her, and it's a shame because I feel like after season 1 they switched more to the school setting instead of the home setting. So I wonder if we get more Amy storylines down the road.
That's a very good point. And I can say I do remember Alan's storylines, but I really don't know how many Corey and Amy are Amy only storylines we get.
Well, the only one I really think of is that time she went back to school and had a class with Eric. Is one of the only ones that really comes to mind.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, moving forward. She notes that her and Alan try to keep their relationship fresh and
steamy. Yeah,
she's
Corey does not want to hear it.
Yeah, but like, it's how great is this? She's like, we do a little role play, we do a little, and I think this is very adult, but it's fantastic to see on TV a very loving couple who, as you said, has to put effort into it.
Yeah, and it's just it's good for the kids to see, I think.
Yeah. And understand that it's not just effortless. Corey points out that he's like, look, it sounds to me like you were lying and you were trying to get away from us. And Amy's like, that's because you're a kid and you see everything in black and white. But adults know that there's gray area.
Yeah, she says like when you're an adult, you realize not everything is as simple as right or wrong, which you could tell like makes like Corey doesn't understand it, but he learns it.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly, and that's a very good way of putting it. He doesn't understand it, but he does learn the lesson. And I think what's even funnier is he comments and he's immediately like, does this make sense to you, to Eric? And Eric's like, of course it does. I'm an adult. And I don't think it really does. But either way, I think it shows Corey's maturity that he's still willing to question it,
Sure, absolutely.
He doesn't just accept it as fact. So that's fantastic. In our next scene, we are back at school, and Minkus is having like a beautiful moment.
What Minkus is doing, we come back to class, Minkus is doing MIT graduate level calculus. What the fuck is he doing in the 6th grade? It makes no sense. And look at that chalkboard and tell me that he's in the right class.
Well, according to even this particular episode, it's not like that's the level of math he always does. It's like this was his moment.
He discovers time travel, Siege. Time travel.
Yeah, but he stumbles upon it. He didn't go into it
like every other 6th grader. Yeah.
Okay. But as soon as the class begins, Feeney comes in, reminds us all of the math problem, which I just made a note here. I don't know if anyone solved it, but it's like Al washes the car in 6 minutes. Fred washes the same car in 8 minutes. How long does it take them to wash the car together?
7.
And Corey is like, you know what? I know why you gave us this word problem. He's like, you want us to stop thinking like kids and start thinking like adults. Because we need to think differently. And that's how Topanga knew the answer, because she thinks differently, very differently. And that is ultimately the difference between her and Minkus. So we get the answer to that question, even though we don't necessarily get an answer to the math question.
Well, and you also have to remember that she didn't actually know that. Topanga had to channel an ancient spirit to get that answer.
Okay, yeah, you know what? I'll give you that. I'll give it to you. But Feeney points out that they have been taught up until this point to seek the right answer, but they should know that in life the right answer is sometimes that there's no right answer. And he was like, and this is a very important for you to learn too, Minkus. And I think that this is very interesting for two reasons. One, we had this entire show that went kind of like not all over the place, but it had a lesson that we didn't exactly see paralleled in this whole family conflict, Matthew's family conflict.
Oh, I disagree.
Well, no, I'm just talking entirely. I mean, like it parallels, but what I'm trying to say is it's separate. We don't have like that in between moment like we did in the last episode
where where the two stories connect somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like these are completely different things, but we managed to teach everyone a lesson. Corey gets a lesson, Sean gets a lesson, Eric gets a lesson,
Minkus gets a lesson.
And I'm about to say, but we even were able to teach Minkus something. And to me, that's a really great episode when you come back and you're just like, oh, by the way, Minkus, this lesson applies to you the most.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is that as Corey's saying this whole, I found out that we need to learn to think differently and all that stuff. Feeney says, Corey, I've never been so impressed with you. Which was like, wow, that's actually kind of a big deal for Feeney to say that.
Oh yeah, I mean that is. I didn't know he said he's never been this impressed with him. But
yeah, he said something like to that effect of like, I've never been so impressed with you, and you definitely figured out this answer, and I don't know. It was interesting to see Feeney actually kind of enjoy seeing Corey figure this out and be happy for him, and I don't know, for him to actually feel pride.
I think that this is a turning point. Like you said, we've kind of turned already, but I feel like this episode particularly was a turning point in showing us that we will be going into more mature topics, and that we have our cast and we know what we want to do, and we're now going to be on a different direction.
Also, the show matures with the kids, and the kids are kind of slowly starting to mature. Like it's just happening on screen in front of us.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's just that it's not just that the show is pivoting. It's the kids themselves are growing up, and we're all going to go on this journey together.
Yeah.
Topanga Topanga turns to Corey and asks, did your spirit guide give you the answer? And he goes, yeah, my mom. And it's just like
the Boy Meets World moment. That's the Michael Jacobs moment of the show.
All right, the epilogue has what you said, which is that Minkus figures out that maybe time isn't a continuum, but just a random repetition.
Sixth grade this kid is in.
Okay, and we get some fun with that, and that is the episode. Great episode, right?
Yeah, you know what? Again, I thought it was really good. I thought the comedic timing was great. I felt like every person in this cast gave it 100%. Minkus was fantastic. The only character that I didn't really care for as much was, I guess, Eric. But even his character was fine. I get this episode.
Yeah, Eric. I think he's Eric. I think if anything, we're seeing less and less of Morgan, and I think there's a reason for that. I just think for what the stories that we're trying to tell, her cute.
Well, and once we move from the home dynamic of the first season into like the high school dynamic of the second season, there's even less room for her.
Yeah, exactly. And I think rightfully so. Let's go into Feeney Taught Me, where we discuss lessons from the episode and what's the main takeaway. So where are you at? What do you got?
I think it's just, think different. Think differently and think outside the box, because there ain't always a right answer.
Yeah, of course. I agree with that. I think it was almost like directly said. I also want to point out that one of the lessons is that, sorry, got tongue tied. One of the lessons is, that marriages take work and that, parents have their own lives and, not everything is as easy as it seems.
And yeah, maybe the other lesson should probably be we shouldn't let our kids take like 4 city buses in the middle of the night to downtown Philadelphia.
No one let them. To be fair, they put Eric in charge. So, I mean, if anything, that was their first mistake. But they put Eric in charge to make sure that something like this didn't happen. It's not their fault that their babysitter joined in on the stakeout.
I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot more lessons we could have all learned here.
Well, you know what? That could have been a whole different, very special episode. So,
no, Amy getting caught with an actual another man would have been a very special episode.
It would have, and that would have changed the trajectory of Boy Meets World.
Yep.
Boy Meets Real World a little too soon. You ready to go into grading?
Oh yeah, let's do this.
All right, what grade are you giving this?
I'm going to give this episode a B-.
I'm going to go same letter, opposite end. I'm going to give it a B+.
Okay, all right.
It earned its B+ in my mind. I'm really, really happy with this episode, and I think it was a great use of everything. Not quite an A, but the comedy in this episode is just great to me.
I definitely I'm a little bit hesitant to be too generous with my rating just because I know that this show gets so much better. Not to say that this is a bad episode, but it does get so much better, and I don't want to be stuck to that point where like I'm giving like an A or a B rating to an episode that like compared to 2 seasons from now might not even get a C. I don't know.
But
It's hard to.
Now I'm learning new things as we rewatch. There may be episodes that I thought were great that are trash, and there may be episodes that I thought were trash that are great. So I'm just living for the day.
Living for the moment. All right.
All right. Thank you guys. Make sure you let us know what your thoughts are. Make sure you give us your grades, your feedback, that you follow us and rate us on iTunes. This has been.
Yeah. Also, if you guys have ever caught like your parents having an affair, let us know about it.
What are you trying to turn this show into? I mean, like stories, but. In order to do that, you got to contact us at Bruh Meets World on all of the things. That's
No. Leave your personal stories about your family falling apart in the comment section of our podcast, please.
Do not do that. Email us at bruhmeetsworld@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you can find more about me at Extra Siege. That's XTRACEEJ. Where you at, T?
Yeah, as always, you could do Anna Kendrick retweets at Anna Kendrick RT for really inconsistent retweets of Anna Kendrick's tweets. And yeah, you know what? Let me just throw a shout out to Lee Norris. I don't know where he is, but find him, follow him. He's wonderful.
Lee Norris is actually, he had a role in the reboot Girl Meets World, and they do it really well. So yeah, just look forward to that. We will see you guys in the next episode.
Later, bro.
Remember,
whoa,
I never forget. It is there for me. You forget.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I need you to help me to remember.
So remember to dream, try, and do good.
Dream, try, and do good. All right. Later, brah.